Good morning and welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. We got a lot to go over this morning, but I think the big question that both you and I have from yesterday is Jamie right? And by when we say Jamie, we mean Jamie, the big guy. Jamie Dimon of Chase Bank came out yesterday very pessimistic on the U.S. economy and where we may be headed over the next months. So we're going to take a look at it and see what he's looking at. So I'm Brendan Rendo with the Homes in Orlando team and joined as always by Joseph Dion. And we're here and this is the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. So what do you think, Joe? Is Jamie right?
It's kind of hard. He's been pessimistic for a while, but I feel like he's doubling down, really doubling down. And he's not backing away from this. And
No.
Are we seeing more kinks, cracks? I feel like we might be. It's starting to feel like, when he says the economy's going to shit, it's hard for the average person to disagree in some capacity. There's some great things happening, but there are a lot of kinks in the armor, if we say that.
Yep, very much so. And whoops.
You got rid of me
Wrong one. There he is. Hold on a second. There we go. I got all kinds of buttons. But Jamie, he usually tends to be a little bit quieter than some. And when he does say it, he means it. And you kind of got to understand where he's coming from. And he's been preaching probably one of the biggest things overall. Been preaching about our debt and the problems and the amount of debt that we have in this country. And that's really been the horn that he's been tooting, is because we continually add debt. And we've got, this is going to be interesting because today alone, we've got, was it close to $137 billion of treasury going on. We got some 1 month, we got some 2 month, and we got 30-year treasury bill today. And I think the one you really got to keep an eye on is that long term.
Well, real quick, before we go into let's explain this for someone. Why is this important? What exactly is a treasury bill?
That's how we raise money to run the government these days, because we run such a deficit. We're running nearly a $2 trillion deficit.
Pennies
like that consistently, whether Democrats are in office or Republicans are in office, doesn't matter. So you basically you have to raise money to continue to keep the government running. The way you do it is basically old school. You write a note. Hey Joe, can I borrow $100? Wonderful. Thank you. You give me the $100. I write you a note on the full faith. You're on the full faith and of Brendan Rendo being able to do it. You actually don't have any real security to it. And I'm going to pay you a certain amount. Now, here's where it gets interesting is, Joe, I've come to you now 3.5 million times. And I now owe you a ton of money, say $1 million. And you know that I'm only pulling in about $100,000 a year. But I'm coming to you again and saying, Joe, I need another $100.
I'm gonna put my glasses on and I'm going to tell you no.
No? Really? But Joe, what I'll do for you, Joe, because you're a good guy. I'm going to increase my yield from 4% to 5%. I'll pay you 5% instead of the 4%. How's that? And you know what? And I know we've got some additional debt coming due to you here. About $500,000 of my $1 million that I owe you. I know that's at 1.5%. I know we're going to have to refinance. So why don't we refinance that too? And we'll do that at 5%.
Now I'm winning.
Now you're winning.
As long as you can making those payments.
I'm losing because my interest payment just tripled.
Yeah.
And that's I think the concept. It's a very simple concept, but I think it's a concept that a lot of people are missing. In that what's going on currently is we're issuing this continued debt. But at the same time, we've got, I think it's $7 trillion in the next 4 or 5 months that has to be refinanced as well.
Yeah.
The average rate on those was 1.5%, and we're going to jump to probably 4.5. I think we could see 5 on some of this.
It's going to be hard to dig out of that hole.
Yeah. How do you dig out of it? Because we literally borrow to pay the interest on our debt.
Maybe more fiscal responsible spending on the government side. Let's just take this whole thing off for the rails, Brendan. what did you think about Mike Lee and his proposal that he's kind of backing the idea of Warren Buffett's idea of
I love Warren
anytime
Buffett's idea. I love
anytime
that.
the GDP is what is it, a 3% in the
3%.
negative or greater? All Congress is out. They're not eligible for re-election. And to see a senator kind of saying, hey, maybe we need to think about this. Like, I don't think it's going to gain much steam. Probably a political piece. But you know what?
Oh, like term limit,
Yeah.
I mean, it's I'm sorry, but I get so frustrated because it's always everyone's fault but our own. Everybody's fault. It's not my congressman's fault. My congressman's wonderful, right?
Yep.
But in the meantime, what have they done? Well, Pelosi's now worth $264 million on a $200,000 roughly salary.
Yeah. Well, it's because her husband's super successful.
Oh, I mean, he is the trader of the century and a half.
I know.
I mean, that guy just unreal how much he's able to do. But the hard part here is that the thing that that a lot of people don't realize as well is right now we're actually starting to do what we did during COVID, quantitative easing. And a lot of people don't know what quantitative easing is, but basically you get the printing machine is what it is. And what happens is okay, Joe, you don't want to take the whole $100 risk that I'm asking. All right. So I still got to come up. You gave me 90, but I still need another 10. So somehow I write myself a note for that $10 and give myself $10. That's basically quantitative easing. That's what the government does because they're the only ones who have the ability to print money. So they actually will go, and in this case, last week they printed about $10 billion because there was $10 billion of quote surplus treasury bills. Surplus. How was there surplus? And what it is just nobody wanted to buy it. There was not enough buyers out there to push this through. And this is why, I mean, quite honestly, I understand why Jamie's frustrated because he's looking at this and going, the market's just, it's not there. It's not there. And the more the government pulls money out, the less there is for the private sector. One of the announcements yesterday was SBA is changing a lot of their rules again and tightening lending so that now a seller held note is going to be much harder to do for a lot of these small businesses. And that's how a lot of small businesses are bought and sold is the seller's willing to hold paper on it, or at least a portion of it, with an SBA loan. So they're doing away with that. And they're doing away with a couple other things, which basically is tightening the lending market. So a lot of these small businesses are going to struggle further because of those restrictions that are being brought. So, I mean, it's something's got to break, and I actually kind of agree with Elon. I'm not a fan of the big beautiful bill. I'm not, because it doesn't cut spending. It doesn't rein everything in. I understand that everyone wants theirs except just cut everyone else. Don't take mine. That's all I want. You can cut everybody else, but don't take mine. But that's never been. I don't feel that's ever been the philosophy of America. I mean, you look at everything we've gone through. Americans pony up and sacrifice together, and I think we've lost that feeling, and it's unfortunate because I think we could get over it, but it's going to take a lot of sacrifice on a lot of people's point to get over that. And you can see what it's doing to our markets right now. I mean, we've pulled back in our 10-year a little bit over the past week or so.
Yep.
It's going to help rates a little bit, but we're not falling down. We're not back down to that 4%, which we had hit a couple times.
We had hit. We started to tear back, but this was a welcome sign over the last couple of days, because when we were crossing that touching that 4.5, that was a really important zone that I was like, if we had snapped past that, could have been bad for rates, and that could have seen further slowing of the housing sector, of home purchases and sales, so to speak.
Yep. Yeah, and you're looking at that, and I know a lot of people are looking at the Fed like, "Hey, Fed, let's cut rates.
They're not.
They've got a meeting in roughly 6 days, and right now, 97% of the market's saying they're not.
Nope,
they're not cutting. Even though when you look at the numbers that came out for the jobs numbers, the consumer price index numbers, on the surface they didn't look bad, but when you dove into them, there were some not so good signs. One of them Jamie had mentioned was that they had revised all the past jobless claims numbers or job growth numbers, and downgraded and basically wiped out all the job growth from the past 2 months. So you look at that, that's really a softening of the job market. Then the consumer price index, same thing, is they adjusted some numbers. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. So the numbers you always get aren't always what the final numbers look like. And those revisions kind of hurt overall. And it's not, I think it's just not between the bond market right now. Those numbers, I understand, is pessimism overall on the economy. It's a lot of ebb and flows, and it's a lot of contradiction in a lot of. You know what I mean? I mean, even when we get into Orlando here, this is interesting because this is a headline from the Orlando Business Journal. That we are one of the major U.S. metros with home price drop.
We've seen it, right?
Huh? What's that?
You've seen it, right? We're feeling it.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, I can give you example after example. I mean, probably the biggest one is I have a client who owns a condo at one of the resort communities. If we had sold it last year, I tried to push her to sell it. We actually had an offer at $230. She was at $239. She didn't want to budge. Well, she's lost probably $50,000 in value. That same condo, at that time there were 20 units on the market. Now there's 55 units in that community on the market.
Wow.
Her HOA
condo unit,
her
right?
HOA jumped another $200 this past January. And right now, if we sold it, we could probably get out for about $190.
Okay.
That's a hit. I mean, you never take the hit till you actually sell it, just like stock.
Yeah.
But still, when you look at what you could have versus what you're actually going to do, that's tough. I mean, I've got another listing that we had listed 18 months ago. They decided to stay a little bit longer, so we took it off the market. Up in Sorrento, beautiful house, 5-bedroom, 3-bath, and at that time we had it listed at, I believe, $535. And when we put it back on the market, looked at the comps again, it dropped to $515 rough. So we had lost about $20,000 in value there. And you're seeing it all over the place. I got an email from Taylor Morrison on their builds. They're dropping 30% or more on the number of their listing right now. And they're not the only builders. There's a number of builders who are doing that. So we see this, but then we see this in Orlando. Orlando leads the nation in job growth, outpacing major U.S. regions. So that's great news. That's good to see. But we hop back and we're dropping in prices. We're growing, but the prices are dropping. Why? What do you think it is?
Prices are dropping. I think if it was my side, we talked about condos kind of, I think it's the tourism side. People aren't traveling as much, maybe. I think short-term rental, that side is kind of like we're seeing what kind of propped up part of our sector is the side that's being impacted most. And it's hard to quantify that in just broad numbers, right? Like we have to really get into the X's and O's. But I think we are seeing job growth. We are seeing some of that. But on the housing side, some of the things that helped propel Orlando and Central Florida as a see those skyrocketing prices, that kind of pull back. Like people aren't traveling as much. I think maybe Epic Universe is going to change that a little bit. I don't know. It just still in soft launch right now, but it's, so they're only operating at like a third capacity, or, maybe that changes things. But I mean, you got to basically take out a second mortgage to go to Disney for a week now. So, maybe we see that slow down with everybody have already tapped all their credit. That everybody's been living on for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good portion of it is you look at the amount of credit card debt that we have, the buy now, pay later. That exploded for people. And it's gotten to be, I mean, this was an article that came out from the Miami Herald yesterday. And I get it. I mean, I understand and I agree with it, is nearly half of Floridians are living paycheck to paycheck, which with the higher cost of housing, higher cost of food, nothing really being inexpensive anymore. And you have a job income that's just not increasing to keep up with everything. So I can understand that. And when you look at the price of a home, price of a mortgage, all that stuff, and you come back and you're like, I can understand that. I mean, I think that's one reason why we're seeing so many apartment buildings going up, is because right now it probably is cheaper than owning a house when you take into account, your mortgage, interest rates, taxes on the house, insurance costs. I think that's one of the big advantages of buying new. And that's why more people are looking, they're making there's so many incentives, but when you can get the insurance on a house that's brand new for what, $800 full coverage, as opposed to, I've got a 1972 home. I think yours were built roughly around the same. We're sitting, I think, $3,200 a year for the
Yeah.
insurance. You know, that's $2,000 more. That, hey, it's $200 a month, but it's $200 a month. So you look at that, you look at the efficiency of the homes, all that kind of stuff, and you can understand why certain things are happening. So does Jamie have it right? I think in a lot of areas he does. I think in a lot of areas he does, and I kind of wish he could get into the ear of some of our politicians. I mean, there's a couple standing up right now. Rand Paul is one of them, who's saying, no, I'm not going to vote for this bill because it's not right, you know. And I think they've got to go back through and they've got to incorporate a lot of the recommendations that Doge had, because it wasn't as great as they wanted, but it was close to $250 million or $1 billion of wasteful spending. And here's the thing that got me. It was like, oh, we'll use it. No, don't use it somewhere else. Just don't spend it. Just don't spend it. It's that easy. Yeah, that's all you got to do. Just not spend it for once. Sit on your hands. Don't spend it. Don't borrow it.
Ooh.
There's an idea. Don't borrow it. And guess what? Maybe interest rates will come down without the Fed even being involved because you're not borrowing as much.
I like this idea.
Isn't that unique? Isn't that just so unique?
Yeah,
don't spend
this
what
is
you
great.
don't have.
You know what would be interesting, and I'm thinking about this, is really random. What if some of our negotiations with this tariff stuff, instead of just trying to come up with all these agreements and we're going to charge this and do this and that, and what if we were like just went to some of these countries and we're like, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. We'll keep it fair, but you're going to forgive X amount of debt that we owe you.
That's a freaking awesome idea. I understand that. I get that. And it's interesting because my wife actually had that conversation with me the other day. She's like, do we really owe these people the money? I'm like, well, on paper we do. She goes, well, why don't we just, if we owe them, they owe us, and there's all this debt all over the world. Hey, everybody, just forget it.
Yeah.
You know, let's start from zero.
I don't think you can do it as a full like a full worldwide reset, because people won't, there's debt, it's leverage, right?
Yeah.
But I'm kind of like, we have a little bit of leverage right now with everything.
Yeah.
You know, why not?
Why not go to China?
Start playing a little bit of that.
You want us to do this, and this? Okay, you've got what, $700 billion of debt right now? Okay, well, guess what? You forgive 200 billion of it, and we'll do this. You cut it off our book. Done. That's actually an interesting negotiation. Wouldn't it be?
You know what? I feel like maybe we're onto something here. I don't know if we're going to get in front of the right people, but maybe this idea is just too simple. We don't understand the complexities of all this stuff. So, I just ignore it.
Yeah. Well, we'll call I'll send an email to the Secretary of Treasury. Nice guy. I like him. He's actually, I like him. He's all right. He's all right. So, that's funny. All right. Well, let's get into our Orlando. And again, I mean, we are staying consistent across the board. Last week, 408 sales, had a little peak at the end of the month, the previous week, not as big as the end of April. Well, it was a nice little peak. Of course, everybody trying to close. And then our inventory is consistently growing, right? Just consistently growing. Interesting enough, the condo market actually declined a little bit. And this, I believe, is the withdrawals were very high for the condo this past. A lot of people starting to back off and just saying, forget it, I'm going to have to keep it. You can see here, our months of inventory, we're up over 5 months of inventory. That, to me, is a buyer's market. And that's what I think we're starting to see is nearly 50% of all sellers are giving some kind of concessions right now in the sales process. So it's really starting to turn into the buyer's market. And you look right across the whole board, even in the 400 to 500, which these days that's the average sale, we're sitting at almost 6 months worth of inventory. Then over $1 million, we're back up to nearly 10 months of inventory there. And average days on market, it's just holding consistent in that 60 range. Little goes up and down 1 or 2 days every week, but extremely consistent. Then when you look graphically, end of April, remember we had those couple weeks of we had some really aggressive rate, and it helped peak the end of April, where we actually hit that 600 home mark. But end of May, because rates went back up, we dropped about 100 homes. But look at this. If it's not the end of the month, we're consistent right around that 400 mark of homes sold every single week. And then our inventory, since the beginning of the year alone, we're up 25%. And again, days on market. And this was interesting because this kind of surprised me, because I thought, we're just finishing up school. Everybody got out in the past week or two, and a lot of families like to shop right after the end of school. And we saw the number of withdrawn homes jump up to nearly 200. I would have thought people would have waited maybe another month, July, when people start going on vacation, things like that. You would start to see this number peak. But I think a lot of people really just getting frustrated that the houses aren't moving that quickly. And then get into the condo market, and I mean, here you go. You want to talk about buyer's market? You've got 9 months of inventory in the condo market, with your average days on market at 84 days. So I mean, like I said, the facility that my client is in now has 55 units for sale, and they have 320 overall units. That's a lot. That's a lot of units. And who's ever the most desperate to sell that unit, and that's the one that's going to sell, and they're going to have to drop their price and give away a lot of stuff to make it work. So I mean, that's Orlando. We're staying consistent. I think if we had stayed at that 6.5, I think we would have seen a little bit more of a summer.
Yeah. And
I'm just right now, I'm interested to see what happens, see what the numbers are at the end of the day of what happened to the bonds that were issued today, especially at 30 years, because that's your long. That's where they have a tendency. They could push up the rates there, which could help drag the 10-year back up as well.
Yep.
So, but if you're a buyer right now, man, take advantage.
Get some deals.
There are deals. There's deals in the new construction. There's deals in the resale. You've got a good selection. You've got a really good selection. And the more these homes stay on the market, one thing I do with a lot of my clients is we'll just search homes that are on the market for 60 days or more, because those are the ones that are really starting to feel the pain.
Yeah.
Really starting to feel it. And that's what, negotiations, a lot of times it's about the pain on the other person's side.
Yep.
What's going to alleviate that pain? Well, what's going to alleviate that pain is the selling of that house, and especially if it's vacant. If they've already bought their other house and they're carrying that mortgage, that insurance, those taxes, and they've had it vacant for 3 months, and they're starting to have to make that 2 mortgage payments at the same time. That hurts. That hurts a lot. So your thoughts, Joe? What are you thinking?
I mean, I'm right there with you. Like, there's opportunities, like the negotiations. It's still, for all intents and purposes, we hear these concepts of people say it's still a good time to buy. Like, it's because there's less buyers in the market. There's more inventory. As a buyer right now, you have the ability, like you said, to negotiate a deal, get some seller concessions, do this, talk to an educated realtor like yourself, an educated lender like myself that can give you solid strategies to really maximize. We're seeing a lot of situations now where they're able to get seller concessions, they're able to go a little bit under asking price, they're able to get in, and you create this great opportunity, because once the market changes a little bit and rates do go down, you already own the home. You can refinance. You can get those lower rates. There are situations, but you're not competing with anybody right now, or a lot fewer people right now.
I mean, I actually have one of my listings. We've had it on the market for roughly a month. Actually, I mean, we've got it priced. We've had it priced well. But we actually had 0 showing. We had 1 showing past week. They loved the house. It was just right for them. It's a bigger house, 5-bedroom, 3-bath.
Okay.
But they put in an offer, and it's like, wow, okay. We had to we gave some concessions. It's like, okay, we've got one. We got one. Do we want to wait another month for another buyer to come? No, we don't. So, okay, we're giving up a little bit here. Okay, that's all right. We're still within that window that we wanted to be in. But that's what you're seeing a lot on the seller side. And I think the hardest thing with a lot of sellers right now, quite honestly, is that pre notion that it's still the hot market that it was from 4 years ago. That delusion that, hey, my house is worth this. Even when you come in with the comps and you're showing, a friend of mine has a gentleman he asked me to help do some comparables for, and I'm like, okay, the house is worth $569, and the owner's sitting there going, no, it's worth $650. I'm like, no, it's worth $569, $575. And I gave them all the comparable. Well, I did this, and this. I'm like, I understand that. It's beautiful. I mean, it'll help sell your house faster, but these are your comps. Go yell. Don't yell at me. Go yell at your neighbor across the pond who just sold his house, same size as yours, for $560,000.
Yep.
You know, it's his fault.
That's what it did.
He did it. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. So I'm just the messenger. That's all I am. Don't shoot.
Yep.
Me. Don't shoot. So, well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And please join us every Thursday, 11 o'clock. Got some out of it. Please like, subscribe, and love to have you back here at the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a great one, guys.